You're listening to the Fanboy Garage Podcast.
And welcome to the Fanboy Garage. I'm Chris Lasanti, joined by my co-hosts Vanessa.
Hi.
And Aaron Barola.
This is the way. What's up, folks? It's good to see you guys again. If you're looking at us, and we actually can't see you, but it's great to be back another week, another episode of the Fanboy Garage. We are at episode 121, right?
Yeah.
And wow, the Mandalorian keeps on beating me over the head with some goodies and some goodness. This episode in particular was off the chain. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some reboots or remakes or something related to Home Alone. We'll figure that out as we get through it. And Wonder Woman 1984. Does it move? Does it stay? Does it become an HBO Max thing? And then, of course, James Gunn is rallying all the troops. He's thinking about bringing back Sly Stallone. I think that's a thing. But we'll start where I said we were going to start. We're going to talk about the Mandalorian. Episode 3. What'd you guys think?
Well, I think for those of people who thought that last week's episode was kind of a little bit of a throwaway, you can look at it now as just a palate cleanser for this episode, which delivered on just about every level, right?
Yeah, for sure. It was awesome.
Story, setting up a lot of the, intrigue of the season, right? Characters, important characters debuting or at least mentioned in some cases. And this episode was fantastic. This stormtroopers.
Yeah, there was so much jammed into this episode that it went by so fast that when it ended, I was like, that's it. I just felt like we just started it, even though I think it clocked in at around like 30 something minutes. I wish we had a full hour of something like this because it was really awesome. And
I love it. I love it all. It's so good. It is so good. These episodes have me like on the edge of my seat every time. And like, it was funny. Jess and I watched the second episode with the spiders, and she was like, oh my God, spiders. She's like freaking out. And I was like, yeah, some creepy shit going on here. And then we get into this episode and like, you're talking about, so here's the deal. I was really nervous about the introduction of animated characters into live action. So look, like Bo-Katan, we've lived with her in the Clone Wars. She pops up in Rebels. So she's an established character. And this was always a thing. I was like, oh, I don't know how they're going to pull this thing off. This is like a animated character. Like, how do you make that transition? And they did it, and they did it well.
Well, it helps.
I mean, it's voiced by the same character, by the same actor.
Bringing the actors that it's the character, right?
So, but like her costume was on point. Like their costumes are top notch. It's so dope to see that stuff like literally move from animated version into live action. And then the action was great. I love the sort of moving along with the child. But the funny thing is that, what we talked about last week was arguing the fact that, last week felt for some folks that it was a throwaway episode, right?
mm-hmm.
And it was stage setting some of the pieces that kind of fall into place, right? So he doesn't have the razor crest. So he has to, he's all of these things that are happening to him in episodes are putting him on the path to something else. And people are like, oh, they're not moving the story enough forward with the child about getting the child back to the Jedi. But to me, this episode blew open the story that I actually totally forgot about, which is like, what the F happened to Mandalore, the planet, and this whole race of people. And they start to, then we figure out that the Death Watch had a very specific way of doing things for Mandalorians. And then you've got a completely different sect of Mandalorians that are okay with taking off their helmets. And so that causes a little bit of conflict, right, for our character here, because he's part of, whether he knew it or not, he's part of a sect of Mandalorians that have either been misinformed, they were, following a very strict code, and then there's this completely other side of, Mandalorians that take off their helmets, and this is the true ruler. Bo-Katan is the true ruler, because at the end of Rebels, she's the one who wields the Darksaber. And where's he going to go? Is he going to stick with the code of not showing his face, or is he going to move on and embrace this new one, of being able to take off his helmet, which is cool. And then on the flip side of that, it's like, how did Bo-Katan lose the Darksaber, which was like the key? I mean, that's the whole reason why this episode even exists, is to kind of put that conflict into place and really kick that thing off. But I was, a lot
of to let you get geeky here for a second. That whole thing, right, with the children of the Watch, was an important piece to this character's backstory. Like, we're starting to flesh this out, right? So give a little bit of background for people who aren't familiar with that whole deal. I mean, it involves Darth Maul, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Give people a little bit of background.
So Death Watch was like a super militaristic sect of Mandalorians. They aligned themselves at first with the Separatists, then they aligned themselves with the Empire. I'm totally blanking on the leader's name, but he was a descendant of the Mandalorian that actually becomes a Jedi, right? He's the one who creates the Darksaber. So he leads Death Watch with Bo-Katan, actually. And then they are creating all of these terrorist moments within Mandalore. Bo-Katan's sister, now I'm blanking on, Satine, is one of the leaders of Mandalore, and Maul kills her in front of Obi-Wan Kenobi, disrupts the balance of things there, right? So then Bo-Katan decides to leave Death Watch. Death Watch is still a thing, but then she aligns herself with some of the other folks in Mandalore, in Mandalore, and they fight against Death Watch. They overthrow them, but then Maul comes in. He leads Death Watch. It's like this whole, it's a whole epic thing. What I would totally recommend folks check out is certainly check out Clone Wars, certainly check out Star Wars Rebels, because they get really, really deep. Or there's this guy his YouTube channel is called Screen Crush, and he does these quick little like 10-12 minute shows, giving you some background on some of these characters. What is Death Watch? Where is like Ahsoka Tano and all of this stuff? So he really starts to line up all the puzzle pieces. It's a quick watch. His name is Ryan Reynolds. I would definitely check him out if you're interested in all that stuff. But it's good stuff. When they mentioned Ahsoka Tano at the end of the episode, like, I went bananas, because because we're moving from animated into live action. I'm glad they kind of like teased us with Bo-Katan's appearance in live action form, because now I'm really set to see Ahsoka Tano come to life in live action. Yeah. And just to give folks, if you guys haven't watched Rebels, she actually is on the search for a lost Jedi. His name is Ezra Bridger. He got lost in the unknown regions, and so if we find her, hopefully we'll get a little bit more of like where he is, or sort of where he's been, because I think everyone's under the assumption that Luke Skywalker is the last Jedi. And technically they're not Jedi. I mean, like, Ahsoka Tano is not a Jedi. She left the Jedi Order, and then Ezra Bridger is not part of the Jedi Order. So we've got some force wielding people that will definitely blow the lid off of this thing. But this episode was so badass.
Fire. And you know what? I would love to see if he embraces, taking off his helmet. I would love to see him acting. I think that's something we haven't really seen yet. You haven't really seen how he processes things, like how he processed that information that he was given. We haven't seen it yet. In character. So that would be really interesting further down, this season or episodes, if he does embrace it, even for a second, and maybe he goes back to what he was taught, but if he embraces it even for a second, and we can see more of like Pedro Pascal and just his face and his acting, I would love to see a little bit of that.
Yeah. I would like to think that was part of the plan. I don't know, ask Pedro Pascal in this to keep him 100% under the helmet the whole time.
Right.
You know,
because there's like 3 different versions of people that are under the helmet. So occasionally Pedro
Right.
Pascal is under the helmet.
True.
And you've got the gun wielder, then you have the stunt performer who does all the
Right.
fight scenes and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I would say, it's funny you say that, because in this episode, the one thing that struck me was how good he is at the voice, at like giving you some acting through the voice, right? So like when he's like the child, like, and you can like sense his desperation. You got to get the kid out of that thing's mouth. They bring him out, and then they take his helmet off, and he goes like, I've been searching all over the place for you. And the moment they take their helmets off, he's like, where did you get that armor? Like, like take that thing off, like I'll kill you now.
Yeah.
I love that. So I'm not so hot on like, I mean, it'd be cool, but I don't really care if he's. But what it also does for me is, I think when people were watching the first season of The Mandalorian, we were all like, oh, this must be a new thing. Like, they don't show their faces anymore, right? But now that Bo-Katan has established, nope, there's this specific sect of Mandalorians, these Death Watch people, kept their helmets on, and we still took our helmets off. It opens up a channel for folks like Jango Fett, right? And some of the discrediting that's happened in canon about whether or not he was a Mandalorian. So that changes things a little bit for me, because I'm like, oh, so maybe he was a Mandalorian. Maybe there is a little bit more to kind of unpack there about who he is, because the prequels just are like, oh, the Mandalorian, blah, blah, blah. But, and then in the Clone Wars, we get something like, oh, he disgraced himself, blah, blah, blah. He's just a simple bounty hunter. Like, he's not a Mandalorian. So it's going to be interesting to see if they even, use some of these breadcrumbs to kind of unpack Jango Fett and Boba Fett and all of that stuff. I'm excited about that.
And obviously, you mentioned Ahsoka Tano. They mentioned her at the end of the episode. We knew she was going to be in the show this season. Rosario
Right.
going to be playing her, so that we know. But no, interesting, because you were talking earlier about already knowing these characters through animation.
Mm-hmm.
How is it going to translate? Well, with Katie Sackhoff having voiced Bo-Katan in previously, right? In animation.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's playing the role in live action. So she was a part of giving that character a voice, right?
Yep.
So she's part of the development of that character as an actress. Now Rosario Dawson's coming in. She hasn't been part of that.
Yeah.
She's playing this character for the first time. This is going to be interesting to see, what the take on the character is going to be like, because it is going to be a new voice, literally and figuratively, right? It's going to be. So that's going to be fascinating to see as we go along on this, and it's an important character. So hopefully,
a lot of she's got some big shoes to fill.
Yeah,
that's for sure. I forgot the voice actors, the woman who does Ahsoka Tano's voice. But she's like, obviously she's awesome at it.
Yeah, her name's Ashley Eckstein.
Yeah, I was gonna say Eccles, but that's somebody else, right? She has like it's interesting because when you go back and you watch some of the earlier episodes of Clone Wars, like she's done a great job at sort of maturing the character as she's aged. It's going to be interesting, to your point, to see what Rosario Dawson does with that. Obviously, she looks similar to the way Ahsoka Tano was animated, so I could see why they would pick her. And let's be real here. Rosario Dawson is a geek. Like that, she is the perfect person to play this role. So I'm excited to see what she does.
Speaking of geeks, Sasha Banks also.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A hardcore geek.
For sure.
WWE superstar for those of you who don't necessarily know. She doesn't
really do shit, no. but
it's clearly her, and she, but yeah, so it's a lot of fun faces popping up.
I did not like Sasha Banks when she first came on the scene. I actually in wrestling. But I have grown to respect and like her, just watching her evolve as a character, you know, on TV week after week, and her wrestling improved so much, obviously, from when she first started. And I've grown to really like her. Just from her work ethic. I think it just comes off the screen, and you can feel it. And her character is getting better. Her character work, you know, which she had a lot of practice with on wrestling before she got on a show like The Mandalorian. That's huge, you know, because people don't usually respect wrestlers as actors, right? They're like, you guys are doing that stuff in the ring. Like, that's not really acting, you know? And sometimes people are really bad at it, right? It's like the skits that they have to do. Sometimes the acting is terrible. So I think for her to get from a place where acting is maybe not so like revered, right, to a show like The Mandalorian, which has so much clout, even though her character in this episode, you know, just played a little part, but I think she did good.
Yeah, the thing that turned me around, I kind of felt the same way as you did when I first saw Sasha Banks. But the thing that got me with her was finding out how much of like a hardcore geek she is. Like that immediately was like, oh, because it's very different from the character that she portrays in WWE, right? And you never know, right? The only thing you know of these people is what you see, right, on television. So not knowing, like just assuming that's kind of was how she really is, was like, oh, whatever. But then when I realized she's like a complete geek, like comics. And
she's not the boss.
Right. It was like, wow, this gave me a whole different perspective on it. So it was fun to watch her pop up in this. I'm sure we're going to see her again.
Oh, they hooked everyone with like that quick little like image of her in the teaser trailer.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Sasha Banks. And then I'm like, wait a second. You had like 30 seconds on the screen and you said like 4 things.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. I'm like, and that's the thing too. They packed so much in those trailers. It was literally the first 3 episodes. And the one thing I do want to say, and I don't want to miss this part, was that this was Bryce Dallas Howard's second episode. And oh my God, has she matured, evolved as a director. This episode, in comparison to the last episode she directed, is like leaps and bounds better.
Yeah.
She's so good.
I was surprised because I actually looked it up too, because we didn't know who was going to direct this episode.
Yeah.
Had directed it last week. So when I looked it up, I was like, oh, wow, look at that. Bryce Dallas Howard.
I was like, I was like, when the credits rolled and it was like Bryce Dallas Howard, I was like, well done.
That's right. We did talk about how we didn't know who the director was for this episode last week. I love the little frogs. I forgot the character's
the little tadpoles,
name.
those little things. Yeah.
How cute was that whole thing? And it made it into the episode, and it seems like it's not really a thing. It's like, all right, he got the eggs. He reunited them. Like that was the plot point to get him, you know, to this planet. Yeah. But they still showed some of it and some of their relationship, and they're like, oh, like it was just so cute.
Actually, we should talk a little bit about that, because you know, him eating the eggs in the other episode like caused a shitstorm.
It did.
Oh, people were so mad about that. Like, oh my God, can't a mom just be a mom? I'm like, whoa, holy shit. Like, this is a fictional character, a little green thing eating a frog, you know. And then I think one of the art directors was like, you know, we eat eggs all the time, you know what I mean? Like,
did the vegans get involved?
You know, like chickens, no. And then someone was like, but this isn't a sentient frog. I'm like, holy shit, we're really going there.
Yeah,
we are really going there.
Thankfully, I was able to avoid all of that.
That was a mess, man. That's hilarious actually to watch.
Not really being on social media much. Thankfully, avoiding all that stuff. We've lost all sense now when like we cannot separate fact from fiction, right? We can't separate the world from fiction and entertainment and just whatever alien species and just what it's.
I mean, not only that, but like
science fiction exists for, right?
Yeah, and not only that, like you can have one opinion and it doesn't need to be absolutely like your like creed, you know, that rules your life. You know what I mean? If I think like, you know, Baby Yoda eating the egg is funny, it doesn't mean like I'm a bad person and like
so bad.
I hate vegans now and like I don't believe in like sentient beings, you know, like that's like where it's gone and it's so ridiculous. But like they brought it around full circle. You know, he was playing with the tadpole. He didn't eat it. You know,
there was some movement there. So here's the thing. Like that little guy, he can't talk, right? So we don't understand his thought process. He's just like, he's a kid. Literally, this is my son. Puts chalk in his mouth. Whatever is in front of him, he's like, huh? And then I'm like, no, you don't. And then he's like, huh? Okay, yeah. I mean, that is my son. So like watching that stirs up obviously like pleasant emotions because I'm literally prying shit out of I turned my head for 2 minutes, not even 2 minutes, like 30 seconds. My son's playing with Play-Doh. I'm like, oh, you got this. Turn around. And he's like, like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm like, oh my God. I'm digging my finger in his mouth. I'm like scooping Play-Doh out of his mouth for, like hours literally because it's like stuck to his teeth. Anyways, I get it. But
kid.
Again, to your point, he's starting to play with the little tadpole, right? And he's seeing, oh, life came from the egg. And here, like, there's this little transition and you're seeing it in the child, right? And so that to me, I'm like, so that was a cool thing, right? To see him like finally put it together. Like there's life in those things. It's not just about food. And then the other piece too is that he's articulating things to the Mandalorian, and the Mandalorian understands what he's saying. Because at the end, as they're walking out, the child says something. He's like, "No, you cannot keep it as a pet."
Yes.
And then they walk out, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, oh, they actually can speak to each other. That's pretty dope. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. And
so basically, what you're saying is that you're saying people should just not react immediately to everything and just let things play out.
Is that what I'm saying? Yeah, that is. Message of the day, folks.
It's a little kid. Like you have to imbue that character with child characteristics, you know? And Mando even tells him when he orders him the chowder, he's like the thing, like, you know, eats him in the face and he's like, stop playing with your food. You know what I mean? So like clearly he has this like food thing where he's like learning about things. So people, just not anyone that listens to us, because we know you guys are all amazing, but like, you know, people out there in the Twitter ether, stop it.
Like, pump the brakes, y'all. Pump the brakes. It's not that serious. Holy cow. Yeah, I'm like, if my kid bites me 3 times a day, you know what I mean? Is he trying to eat me? Probably. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, no, Aaron, you're a bad dad. You're a bad father.
Hey, it is what it is. Here it is.
Okay, so we can move on from that for now.
Yes.
More episode. Next episode is the one that Carl Weathers directed, and then the episode after that is directed by Dave Filoni. So he has to prove himself a little.
He gets the 5th episode every season, huh?
Yeah, and his episode wasn't particularly. I mean, he's great. I love Dave Filoni, but as a director, his episode wasn't. So maybe he'll have his comeback.
I hope so. I hope so, and I'll be honest, I can't wait for Taika to come back too. Taika's episodes were dope. Deborah Cho's
so good.
Her episodes,
her episodes were like next level.
Yeah.
And that's what Bryce Dallas Howard gave us.
Yeah.
He gave us a great episode.
I have goosebumps.
It's just bomb.
Yeah.
It's a bomb episode.
So, all right. So the other big thing that happened this week is, well, more speculation about Wonder Woman 84, right? So something we've been talking about forever and ever and ever. It's never going to go away. How is this movie ever coming out? And if it does, how is it going to be released? So, you know, as we know, we are now in the fall, heading towards the winter. And, you know, the COVID stuff is starting to spike again. So now you're starting to see states put in some new restrictions. And, we don't know what's going to be happening again, right? So Christmas Day, which is the day that this movie is supposed to be released, it's all up in the air again. We're kind of back to that. And this is why a lot of the studios moved all of their stuff to next year, just to avoid this, basically. To avoid this scenario where you have to constantly keep shifting your movie because we don't know. Things are just so unpredictable right now, and probably will be maybe until the early spring next year. So Bloomberg originally came out with a report. There were two reports on this. Bloomberg's report said that they were going to still release it in theaters December 25th, but like within 2 weeks, they were going to put it on HBO Max. That was Bloomberg's original report. Then Deadline came out with a story that said, well, they're still not sure. They're thinking about all different scenarios, HBO Max, maybe moving the movie completely, maybe into June of next year, which you would think would be like a safe zone, but that would mean the long time. So, I mean, we don't know anything yet other than like, clearly the studio is starting to rethink their strategy for this. And, me being selfish, I'm one of the people that, has been campaigning for this movie to be released in some form of streaming, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be HBO Max, could be video on demand, whatever. But that's just the selfish me wanting to watch this movie from my living room as quickly as possible. But there's the financial end of this. Right. And, this is not, this is a movie that you don't really want to experiment with, right? This is a movie that the studio is hoping is going to be like $1 billion film. And, in a time when studios can use the money to recoup all of the losses that they've had for this year, I don't know that you'd necessarily want to take a risk with a movie like this, but I don't really know what you do with it. So the HBO Max thing, I mean, HBO Max released some numbers and, they had like 8 million plus subscribers that are solely HBO Max activations. There's 38 million total HBO and HBO Max subscribers in the country right now because they're sort of joined together, right? Because people who have an HBO subscription through traditional channels, TV, whatever, get access to HBO Max because there's no more HBO Go, and it's the same price, $15 a month, as standalone HBO. So they're lumping that all together so they can use something. I mean, Disney Plus is at 73 million, right? So they certainly could use the bump, but I don't know that I don't know that it's worth losing out on. It's not going to be billions of hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in profits to do that. It's interesting that the Disney had their investors call and Bob Chapek was talking about, they asked him about Mulan and they asked if, he didn't release the numbers. We kind of thought they were going to release some numbers on Mulan. They didn't. They released subscriber numbers, which were all really impressive. But he said, and this is just a paraphrase, but something like, we were happy with Mulan, but as you know, like a couple of weeks after the movie was released, there was a controversy and basically kind of hinted at saying like that took some of the steam away from it. But overall that they were happy with it and so on, but didn't really commit to saying like, oh, it was a great success. Oh, it's something that we're going to do. He was very like vague about it, which I found interesting and telling. Because we were expecting them to really like say, oh, Mulan was this great success. So, I personally, as much as I would love to see, Wonder Woman 84 be available early, to me, the whole thing of releasing it in theaters on Christmas Day and then putting it on HBO Max.
That's so stupid.
I don't know why you would do that. That seems like desperation. But I don't know.
What do you think? They move it to June?
Man, that's rough. To have to move this movie to June, especially now. All of the movies from this year seemingly have been pushed to next year. So it's going to be a crowded year next year. I don't know, man. I still think the best route to go for this would be a video on demand, like a pre-demand route. Let people buy it at home, charge $30 for it if you want, right? Charge 25, 30, whatever you want to charge for it. As much as you think you're going to need to charge to get that money back and hope for the best. And then, but I don't know. I mean, financially, does it make the most sense to hold it off until June of next year and release it in theaters when the world may be back to somewhat normal? Probably, but we don't know what the world looks like in June of next year. That's the thing. Right? So we're back to this. Let's put everything aside for a second. Vaccines and what we did. The fact of the matter is nobody here can tell you what June of next year is going to look like. And I'm not even talking about COVID. I'm just talking about in general, right? These theaters that have lost tons of money, the willingness of people to, or the fact that people have now spent an entire year not going to movies, watching movies at home. Like, we don't know what appetite for the audience is going to be. Look at this, Aaron makes his mic.
It's like, it's distracting the shit out of me. It's like
look what I can do.
Want to see a magic trick? How about a magic trick?
That's yeah. So, we don't know what the world's going to look like in June of next year. We don't know what the market is going to look like in June of next year. And I do think it is a risk, assuming that everything is going to be perfect and everything is going to be back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a perfect answer for this, but I do think they have to make a decision and stick with it at some point, whatever that is.
All right. Well, Aaron, you want to take it?
I was like, it's Warner Brothers. I mean, they did this game of chicken with Tenet. We saw how that kind of shook out. Look, the idea that movies are gonna get that kind of attention that Avengers, which is really the last blockbuster that we've had, and I'm not saying that Wonder Woman did not have the potential, but it is a very different world now. And people just, even if there's a vaccine, even if all of these things, because the stars align, like, there are people are scared. They're not going to go. You're not going to get all of those people. And then you're talking about repeat viewings and all of that shit. Like, that's not happening anymore. So I think they should have made this decision like months ago when they moved their entire slate and moved, Black Adam off and moved the Batman back, to whenever the hell, 2028. I don't even remember. But, like, they should have moved Wonder Woman. They shouldn't even have thought that by December things were going to be normal, because even if they were, it's a different world. It wasn't going to be a reality.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think two things. I don't mind the HBO Max idea. But to your point, under a premium model, which I think HBO Max should absolutely be thinking of and should be doing, they can charge $30, and I'm guaranteeing that they would bank. Like, Wonder Woman 84 is definitely not a Mulan. It's like up here, way up here. That is the first blockbuster-ish type movie that I think would make serious bank if they were to do the premium model on HBO Max. Moving it to June, sure, that's fine. But then I feel like, again, you said it, Chris, I feel like we're going to get into the similar territory. It's going to be a busy year. I'm going to have to pick and choose my movies again. I'm like, well, how much do I want to go to the movie theaters? Like, I don't want to live in the theater, because that's how it's feeling. That's what 2021 is feeling like. It's like April is going to happen in 2021. It's going to be like movie. Like, just they're going to stack it. And we're not going to be there. We're not going to get there. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, Warner Brothers, they've chosen to chase this, right? They did it with Tenet. They're doing it with Wonder Woman. They tried to time everything out so perfectly so that they could have a big movie out and in the case of Tenet, when theaters reopen. Now, in the case of Wonder Woman, it was going to be, we're going to be the only thing out Christmas Day, and that by then theaters will be open in all the markets, and it's going to be a bonanza. And here we go again.
Yeah,
I mean,
you can't do it.
You also have cities, right now in the United States starting lockdown measures, like Chicago has a stay-at-home order for 30 days, Oregon and some other states have also started to implement lockdown measures. And like, once some cities do it because of the cases that are rising, more cities are going to do it. So, we are on the tails of December. And if there are multiple cities and states in a lockdown, right? And then once we have a new president who might even throw us into a national lockdown for 4 to 6 weeks, like the entire country, I mean, forget about your films, I agree with you, Aaron. I think they should do the premium model on HBO Max, do it streaming, charge that $30. You're going to get people who will buy it. And I think right now the HBO Max model is kind of confusing to some people because they're like, is it HBO? Like, I think the name is confusing. I think they did not come up with a good name for that platform. And I think that's why you're not seeing the number of subscribers that maybe they might have hoped, you know, from that, Chris, I think you said it was like 37 million, was it? Like
What's
overall, 37 million HBO like overall subscribers, but for HBO Max, it was like what, 800,000?
It was 8 million new HBO Max activations and 38 million total HBO and HBO Max subscribers.
Right. So I find that even from the beginning when it was released, it was like kind of confusing to me. I was like, what is it? Now, if you release Wonder Woman, people are just gonna like search, like, where can I buy it? Where can, like, Google, where can I buy it? Where can I watch it? And then they're going to sign up for it no matter what it is. They're not gonna decide, oh, is this like something that I want? They're gonna be like, no, give me. Yeah. And then they can retain some sort of audience and some sort of customer base that way.
Stack that shit right before they drop the
yeah. Exactly.
Well, who knows when the hell that's going to be? But what I'm saying is, you get a couple of bites at the apple there, and it leaves them an opportunity. If they were to use Wonder Woman 84 as a launching point for their premiere access, right? Then who's to say that they wouldn't throw Zack Snyder's Justice League under that and go, oh, you're going to have to pay for four movies. Hey, I'd do it. I'll do it. I swear to God. Yeah. You told me, oh, you can pay either for the whole, you'll get like it's $25.99 for the 4, or you can do each part, parse it all out, which no one will ever do.
Or you get like $5 off the Snyder cut when you're buying it.
I'm telling you,
if
they were to do it, they'd make so much money, and I think the subscribers would go through the roof.
Yeah, I don't think they will, only because I think that they're looking at least in the Snyder cut case, they're looking at that to drive subscriptions, because you have to have that as well. Disney, let's forget. I mean, Disney has only done this once, right? They did it with just Mulan. Everything else they're doing, they're putting up straight on to Disney Plus. So,
not for free.
For a subscription. Also, just the other thing too is, so a lot of like what these cities are doing, like Chicago, or they're like advisories, right? So they're not stay-at-home orders like we were under in the fall, where like you have to. It's like, well, we recommend that you don't go out. We recommend that you don't do this, but the fact is, if things are going to get shut down, things like movie theaters will be one of the first things.
Absolutely.
Just like they were one of the last things to reopen, right? Because they're just not essential. Right. And, so that's the risk. As things start to get bad again, if actual like lockdowns start to go into effect, you have to think movie theaters are going to be the things that get shut down, because they're going to do it in stages. They're not going to want to do anything dramatic, right? Like we had to do in the beginning of this year. So they're going to try to do it strategically, but movie theaters are certainly the first to go, on the chopping block. And that's why I just think it's risky. And look, there's people that make a lot more money than I do that are sitting there trying to make these decisions, right? That are trying to figure out what's the best move with this. So I just feel, and again, it's not even putting my selfishness and desire to want to watch it at home aside. From a business sense, I think at this point, you have everybody hyped for this movie. Right around Christmas time, people are going to be home. I think it's a great opportunity to have this available, charge people $30 for it, let them watch it at home. People will be off. Right? Because you got the holidays coming up. In some cases, people are off for like, Christmas through the New Year, so people will be home. May or may not be with family, and it is a great opportunity to try it out, because I think it's the way to go for me. And then listen, I think they're gonna make money on it. You're also not having to worry about theater splits and things like that. That consider. And if it works, you've now opened up a new avenue for things. Not every movie is going to be able to do it, but eventually, you are going to have to try to, I mean, this is going to be the future, right, of film. So if theaters are going to eventually be a thing of the past, or going to take on a little bit of different role in how we view movies, then, yeah, then I do think you have to find out what the potential is. But I don't know.
Yeah, see, the selfish part of me, Chris, is complete opposite. I don't want the movie theaters to go away, and I feel like it's just like they're just nailing that coffin shut, and I almost feel like it would be a Christmas miracle, if Wonder Woman was like in theaters and we all went to see it and there was like no worries in the world. But that's not the reality that we live in. That's gone. I think the new normal, that everyone is saying, I think it's here to stay for years. And I even think the films that they have slated for next year, that's also not a sure shot, So yeah.
If things start to slip into dangerous territory again with the lockdowns and continued advisories, like studios are just gonna have to really think about their streaming services as the next thing, right? It's just going to push them further and further. It's going to continue to accelerate that transformation.
Disney came and said that.
I know, and that's the thing. I mean, they're not playing fool.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, we also have to think about. Let's just fast forward to June, right, as best as we can. It's not even so much about, to me, again, I said this before, it's not even so much about COVID or any of that, vaccine, no vaccine, for me, it's about what has changed this year, right? And how has it changed the whole way that we watch and experience movies? So we've already seen studios like Universal, right, strike a deal, right, with AMC, where like the window for those movies to be available on video on demand is going to be like 14 days or something from the release. So like, what is, by next June, are a lot of studios going to have deals like this as theater chains struggle? Maybe some of, they have to start closing theaters, right? Because not every, the recovery from this is going to be difficult. And, so I think it's not even just about that. It's just what is the world going to be like now after having gone through this? And if let's just say in June of next year, a lot of the studios have deals like that, where it's like, oh, we'll release it in theaters and then 2 weeks later it'll be available on video on demand. I feel almost like you kind of like you would have been better off doing that now with Wonder Woman than having waiting all the way to June. Now you have a lot of competition. Now you have, all these different things, people's mindsets are different, all this stuff, out of sight, out of mind, all of that. And it's like you had and you wind up having to do a similar model anyway, just because that's the way the business has shifted.
Right.
When you have an opportunity to do it now, when you're the only game in town, you're the biggest game in town, it's in a perfect time. And you can set the tone for all of that. I mean, we don't want to see theaters go out of business, but, I almost feel like chasing the traditional model of movies coming out like we've had is kind of like trying to chase these release dates, right? It's like you're fighting a losing battle in some ways. Like the change is going to happen, just like the change. Like I didn't want to see a day where like physical music media was not a thing anymore. But after a while, like you fight, the record industry fought it so much that they put themselves out of business. Basically, they spent more money fighting streaming music than they did trying to figure out how to make money of it. And now, there is no physical media anymore for that. So it's like, don't fight the inevitable. Try to figure out how you can, work in the new world. And I just think COVID maybe has accelerated that. Like they said, like Disney said, COVID, this was always going to be our future. It's just this has accelerated that plan now. Well, I think Warner Brothers might want to probably take that advice and start to think that way as well.
At the very least, they should certainly be exploring the Bill and Ted route, where they release a movie where they can.
Sure.
And
it's a much bigger movie than Bill and Ted.
Right. And then same day do, the VOD.
Right.
Yeah. Luckily this movie already has its like audience built in it, It's not like Bill and Ted, you have a certain demographic, the nostalgia aspect, and people have to find it and maybe come across it. It's like, no, this is Wonder Woman 84. Like it is anticipated. Your people are just waiting, So we'll see what happens.
That shit better be good. That's all I'm saying. We're waiting all this time. That shit better be so good, because I'll tell you something. If DC delivers a turd with Wonder Woman 84, I'm done.
I'll be honest with you.
I am done.
I almost feel like if the movie comes out somehow where I can watch it, right, on Christmas week, whatever, I almost feel like they're not going to have to try very hard to win me over, because I just want to be able to watch the movie and have fun. Like, I'm like, this is kind of the movie that I need right now in my life.
We've been deprived of like superhero films for so long.
Not only that, but just, life, right? 2020. So I'm going to judge this on such a scale like I've probably never judged a movie before. Like it's like not having eaten for like 2 months, and all of a sudden, like the first meal you have, it doesn't matter what it is.
It's gonna be a piece of shit, and then we're gonna be like, oh my god, it was so amazing. It's like when you eat a piece of cake after not having sugar for so long, you're like, this is amazing, so good, and then you're like, this tastes like shit because you got diarrhea later.
Oh no, the bar that I think very low.
What, really, for Wonder Woman?
Well, for Chris.
Oh, well, it's not that it's far low. Like I mean, I love the first Wonder Woman, and I have high expectations for the movie creatively, but I'm just ready for it. Like,
give me a new film.
It would have to be like, like X-Men Apocalypse, or like, bad for me to be like, ugh. No, I didn't. Yeah. I can't imagine, it's just I feel like it's just the right movie at the right time, which is another reason why I kind of would like to see it come out now, as opposed to next summer, when you're going to have 1,000 movies just like it coming out. Like,
well, and we're going to forget about it.
Maybe not. Well, yeah. I mean,
no, we're going to forget. Trust me. We're going to get to a point where it's just going to be like blockbuster film. And then it's going to be like, Wonder Woman 84 is coming out. Sure. No.
Well,
but maybe we'll.
Yeah. So, what is coming? Aaron. Now, every once in a while, so we text each other just to say, hey, well, what are the things for this week, right? Like, what are we going to be talking about? So,
this coffee looks so good.
We hit some points, and Aaron threw out Home Alone remake. So I didn't realize, like, I was like, wait, Home Alone remake, okay, let me check this out. So I do this Google search, and it sent me down a rabbit hole, because when you Google Home Alone remake right now, what comes up is actually articles about how Ryan Reynolds in 2018 has been pitching this idea of doing a Home Alone reboot called Stoned Alone, where it's like a bunch of stoners like in the house, and it's like going to be like a comedy spoof, R-rated though, an R-rated comedy. And I'm like, wait, this can't be what he was talking. Wait, what's happening? Why? And then it happens to mention at the end of any of these articles that, and by the way, there's an actual Home Alone remake, which I do now remember talking about at one point, that's going to be on Disney Plus with Ellie Kemper and, a couple other people in there. There's a new kid, Archie, I think something, or I forget what his name is.
Archie Yates.
Archie Yates, there you go. He's going to play the Macaulay Culkin role. And so that's a thing. And that's kind of what I thought you were talking about. But it was like that Ryan Reynolds thing, which has been getting a lot of attention, apparently kind of really threw me for a loop. I assume that's not what you were talking about.
No. I mean, and let's be totally honest here. Ryan Reynolds doesn't make any good films unless they're Deadpool films. Like, he strikes out. So like him touching a movie that I would actually find,
when you really think about it,
that's true, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. He hasn't really done anything that was like, oh my god, Ryan Reynolds.
He's actually made some horribly bad films.
Yeah. He's had quite a bad luck streak.
Yeah.
so him kind of picking up this is gonna sound really bad, but like the Seth Rogen, Pineapple Express type stoner film just sounds. You should have made that in 2014, bro. And if you're trying to do it now, like, you're kind of dumb because it's legal anyway.
Well, yeah, and to be fair, he's been pitching it apparently since 2018.
Whatever, bro. Good luck.
Well, it took him 10 years for Deadpool, right? So
I know, and that's an awesome film. Both of them are great, and that's awesome. And that's pretty much it for his career.
you have another 8 years to go, Ryan.
Yeah, you got some.
I think the concept is really funny, and I can't stop giggling because I'm just like imagining him like stone in the house while like people are trying to break in. I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. If I was a producer or an investor, I'd give him my money.
There you go, and you'd lose it, all in it.
So
Yeah.
what were you going to talk
No,
about?
I was going for the other Home Alone one because I remember we talked about it because it was a rumor, but I didn't know they had cast people and it was like actually still a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Mm. So
People are like on fire, upset, pitchforks and everything.
So, I have a film that I produced like 3 years ago because independent filmmaking takes a while. But it's like going to come out next year. It's been pushed to 2021 as well. But
there goes your competition, Wonder Woman.
I know. Our kid in the movie, he was actually, I don't know how far he got, but they actually flew him out to meet the director, Dan Mazer. The kid in our movie.
That's so
cool.
cool.
Proud of him. I just want to shout him out. His name is Maximo Macefield, and he is amazing.
Awesome.
But
sorry you didn't get the gig, Maximo. The gig.
He looks like a young Macaulay Culkin. Like he has the blonde hair. Like he looks like.
Does that?
Yeah, like right, exactly. He looks like that kid. But they totally went a different direction with Archie Yates. He's like a chubbier kid. He has glasses. He has like dark hair. So they're going a totally different direction with this movie. And
I am so scared about this film. I know some of the producers of Home Alone, the original, like Chris Columbus, is like slamming Disney for it. Yeah, dude, I agree with you. You don't touch Home. Like, first of all, I just watched them. My little girl is all over Home Alone now.
Love those movies.
Like loves it, and they still hold up. Even the second one. Second one is like, it was one of those films where, and you saw this during that era where first movie's a hit, and then they're like, okay, what's the formula for how we made this so successful? Okay, we're gonna replicate that and just put them in a new city. So they've done that. They did that, and Lost in New York is a fine part of the establishment, but they try to reboot this thing like 3 times. Did you know that there's 5 Home Alone movies? Did you know this?
Yeah, they made TV.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, there's 5 of them.
It's like the Revenge of the Nerds movies. There's like 5 of those.
Oh god, yeah, those are real bad.
Yeah,
Paradise though.
That's the second one. That was in theaters.
That's a damn good movie right there.
Oh, Kenan Thompson is in it.
Yeah.
Womp.
So what Chris Columbus actually said was, he said he's talking about remakes, and he said, if you're making a comedy, a musical, no matter what film I'm making, my goal is to treat it with the same respect as if I was making The Godfather. Home Alone is not The Godfather, but you have to treat it with that kind of respect. And this idea of remaking things that already exist are working well, watch the original. Forget about it. It's just never going to be as good.
Yeah.
He's a firm believer that you don't remake films that have had the longevity of Home Alone.
Yes.
Not going to create lightning in a bottle again. It's just not going to happen. So why do it?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Like,
exactly.
That movie is so iconic in people's like brain and heart. Okay. Steal the concept. You know what I mean? Make it a little different, but go call it something else. Don't put it under the mantle of Home Alone, like take the idea and have this kid be the star of it, but name it something different.
Yeah. There are times when a remake can be effective, right? If you're remaking like an older film, like what John Carpenter did with The Thing.
Yeah.
The movie from the 50s when had a limited budget, and stuff like that. And he took the actual that was based on a story. His movie wound up being more faithful to the original story, right? That was disregarded by the film, the original, The Thing from Another World in the 50s. Those types of things you can remake. A movie that came out where maybe it was based on a book or a story, and the verse version wasn't particularly faithful to it, right? And went in a very different direction. You
like
could,
Witches.
yeah, you could do
Not saying
remake,
that that's good, but that's amazing.
stuff like that, right? But to remake a movie that, like I had said this when they announced that Rob Zombie was going to be making a remake of Halloween, right? Because I was like, come on, man. The original Halloween is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
I thought it was a perfect film, right? It's a perfect film for what it is. There was nothing more or you were going to be able to do with that. And, sure enough, he winds up releasing his remake where he had to expand on the story and that made it worse and all that. And that's neither here nor there. I mean, like I'll never forget Gus Van Sant made that shot for shot remake of Psycho, like nearly shot for shot with Vince Vaughn. I was like, well, what was the point of that? Like those types of things just really don't make any sense. But yeah, I mean, what are you going to do with Home Alone other than have a new kid and make it? I mean, it's not even like the timelessness of it doesn't even matter because it's like, what are you going to update? Like, it's really not.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's like the chemistry of that cast. That's Macaulay Culkin's claim to fame, right? Like that's the thing that just put him in the stratosphere. Like that's all he is known for. So you can't recreate that for any kid.
And he's in it. He's in it.
He's in the Home Alone movie?
He's listed as a cast member.
This is the stupidest thing in the world. This is the stupidest. Was he going to play Kevin McAllister? Like, oh, hey, kid, when I was your age.
Yeah, pretty much.
What? Macaulay, you don't need the money, bro. I heard you on Joe Rogan a year ago. You were talking about how you would live in Paris and you were. What are you doing, man? What are you doing, bro? No, man. So bad. Anyways, Joe Pesci, you can't do that. You can't do Joe Pesci, Daniel Stern. You can't redo those guys. They're perfect.
There you go. Speaking of rabbit holes,
what the F, man?
Wait, now, oh boy, there you go. The mic's so
I'm really gonna make it disappear.
Yeah. These rabbit holes, damn you, Aaron. Now you had me looking up Ryan Reynolds' filmography. Trying to find any good movies.
Trash. Smoking Aces, great movie.
Great movie.
Like one of the few standouts, and obviously the Deadpools. But you got me now. Did you? There's actually a sequel coming out to The Hitman's Bodyguard.
I heard about that.
The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard.
Oh boy, here it is. There we go.
Yeah, starring Ryan Reynolds, Samuel L. Jackson, Salma Hayek, Frank Grillo, Richard E. Grant, Antonio Banderas, and Morgan Freeman.
Oh boy!
Out August of next year.
Sure it is.
So Steve, these are the things you learn.
Okay. Yeah. Man, he just strikes out, man. I mean, like he's great when it's not like he's not headlining it. You know what I mean? Like when he popped up in Hobbs and Shaw, I was like, oh, cool. It's Ryan Reynolds. Like you're just being you. That's cool. And I think that's the problem with him and his career. It's him.
Aww.
It's just if Ryan Reynolds is being Ryan Reynolds, like Ben Stiller was always being Ben Stiller in like these movies, and you're like, oh, that's cool until you're like in the third one, you're like, dude, what? Tired of you, bro. Go away. But like and that's the thing, like in the movies that I really like about with Ryan Reynolds, it's in the movies where he's not typecasting himself. Like Smoking Aces is not. First of all, that's a brilliant film in general, and he is very different in that movie. Like at the end of that film, I felt his rage. I felt his pain. I was like, that's awesome. He did an indie film called Buried where he's like I think like an oil worker or whatever in the Middle East, and he gets captured and he finds himself buried in a coffin. And the entire film is of like him trying to navigate himself in this coffin, trying to get someone to help him and dig him out. Only if, well, I'm not going to spoil the end of the movie, but
Don't.
it's a dope movie, and yeah, I like it. It's good. Then Deadpool. I mean, again, that's the best of Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds. That's not going to get any better than that.
No.
Yeah.
And speaking of weird, before we get out of here, Marvel Studios' WandaVision, the original series on Disney Plus, has a release date now, January 15th. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
I'm so ready for this. I'm so ready for WandaVision. Like, it's not even funny. I've been buying comic books, preparing for its success, because I'm like, this is going to make me some money. Here we go.
Yes.
Gonna get that. Gonna get that. Yeah. So yeah, WandaVision is I am I'm very curious to see what it does, because I know originally we were going all, not galactic, cosmic.
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to go all cosmic in this next phase, and it feels like we're going somewhere completely different. And Wanda and Vision are the sort of catalyst to all of that, which includes Doctor Strange, which now may include Spider-Man and his universe, and it's just gonna do some weird shit to the MCU, and I'm excited about that. I really am excited about that, and super curious for how it all plays out. Because for it to take place on the show, again, it says how important Marvel feels about this format, right? They're streaming. But two, to Feige's truth, we're gonna have to pay special attention to the shows in terms of like what it means for the movies.
Yeah, hopefully not too much, but hopefully you'll be able to catch up.
Yeah,
even with that one. But sticking with so Aaron's next favorite show, Peacemaker, on HBO Max is
oh yeah, still don't face. Yes. I'm sorry, I was like, Peacemaker. What? George Clooney shooting a show? What?
they added Chris Conrad, Jennifer Holland, Robert Patrick of Terminator 2 fame to the cast of that, and also I saw a thing that are they hinting that, or did they say that Sylvester Stallone is going to have a role of some kind in the Suicide Squad?
Yeah, it's already confirmed.
Yeah, James Gunn posted that.
Yeah, I saw the picture. We don't know who yet, though, right?
We don't know who yet, but Stallone, I think he posted on his Instagram some sort of thank you for having him and stuff like that. So
I love you, man. I love James Gunn. Like, I just love his camaraderie with all of the actors he works with. Like that, we get glimpses of that, like, Scorsese with DiCaprio and Tom Hardy and Joseph Gordon-Levitt with Christopher Nolan and a whole bunch of, some of those they really enjoy working with a director, and like everybody that works with James Gunn seems to pop up in another James Gunn film, which I think is just, that's so dope. You know what I mean? He just seems like such a cool guy.
Also his creative style too lends itself to that, like the little cameo by a really well-known actor is that's become one of his things, right? So you almost expect it.
Yeah. I mean, the Mandalorian's doing it too, which is awesome.
Sure. Yeah.
It's
But
really
that's
cool.
because it's Star Wars, and it gives people an opportunity to because think about it, how often would you have an opportunity to pop up in, it's one thing to do an episode of a television show. It's another thing to have to have a role in a movie. It's so much easier. Just pop into this episode of this TV show.
Right.
You don't have to worry about you could even have a role, because you can actually have a real role, right? In that episode. It doesn't necessarily have to mean anything for the bigger picture of the story.
Sure.
But as opposed to in a movie, you kind of either you're either going to have a cameo or a very, very small role, or you're going to be one of the main characters. So yeah, I think it's a perfect forum for famous geeks to be able to pop up.
Yep.
Live out their dreams. So
I mean, most times it works, and sometimes it's a little jarring. Like Bill Burr and his Massachusetts Boston accent in space. That's a little weird.
Yeah.
But
I forgot about that.
That was That's cool though. It's cool as shit though. I gotta be honest, but it's
Yeah,
so
right.
weird.
That's not a Massachusetts. Like if you don't know, right, that's a New England accent.
That shit is so thick. So thick.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys gonna shoot some stormtroopers? What's going on? I'm like, what are you doing, man?
Hey, listen,
Bill Burr, what?
Carrie Fisher was trying to be British for half a minute and
Yeah.
do
Oh
Hulk,
god.
right? So
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there's no real like distinct
Hey,
like accent that's associated with Star Wars, right?
how about Jimmy O'Phelan?
Who? Oh, feeling Oliphant?
We saw him
Who?
from Sons of Anarchy.
Oh my god, I'm sorry.
He was the
Yes.
Imperial general.
Oh no. That's what's his name? Titus. That's
Titus
his name. Titus Pulliver.
Welliver.
That's the
Welliver.
actor's name.
Yeah.
Josh, and he was on. Well, he's great.
I was
He's
like,
all
that's,
over the place.
we were watching the episode earlier today, and I was like, that's Jimmy O'Phelan, but he doesn't have his accent, and I wonder if he's is he a Irish actor?
No, he's a New Yorker, I think.
Oh, then he did a fantastic job with that accent.
Yeah, I think he's a New Yorker. Obviously Giancarlo Esposito pops up for a hot second, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then
That's so
you
cool.
saw my tweet, and I was like, I'm sitting there watching old school Sesame Street with my son.
Saw that.
He follows me, and I'm like, that camp counselor looks kind of familiar. I'm like, that's Giancarlo Esposito. What the heck is that? I'm like, that's Gus Fring as like a teenager in Sesame Street. What the F? Yep.
Crazy.
Gotta start somewhere.
Old
Sesame
school
Street.
Sesame Street, huh?
Yeah.
Aw.
Yeah, I like the throwback stuff, man. I don't know what it is. My son was like, because there was no Elmo back then.
Yeah, we didn't grow up with Elmo.
Like that Elmo, and I find Elmo like the most annoying little red thing in the world.
Yeah.
Just, I cannot stand him. Because like Big Bird is my like Grover, Big Bird, like those are my guys.
Yeah.
Oscar the Grouch.
Right.
Where is he now? Where are those guys now? They're like in retirement.
Are they? I mean, because there is a new Sesame Street, right? That's on.
Yeah, there is. I mean, Big Bird pops up occasionally.
So it's
it's
all
like
new
it's
Muppets?
like new. It's like Elmo and like some fairy, and I don't. They've
that's,
evolved.
Abby Cadabby or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, my daughter's like, absolutely not. My son, I'm like, good. You've got the good genes, man. You're gonna watch Sesame
Old school
Street.
stuff.
Yeah, I try to get my daughter into Mr. Rogers.
Really?
You know what she said to me, Daddy? This guy is too slow.
Oh boy.
And I was like, but that is the point.
Right.
That is the point. And shame on me for letting you watch trash.
Yeah.
Ugh. Anyways, poor kids these days.
Aw.
Watching dumbass shows.
Wow. Well, you'll get it. Maybe you get her into that, Mr. Rogers.
Maybe.
eventually.
Well, now that my son watches Sesame Street, she's like, oh, this is cool. I'm like, oh, really? No. This is cool now. Huh? Your brother has no idea what's going on. There's a big talking bird, and he's just like, oh, there's something yellow on the screen over here. It looks like a bird, and
He's not supposed to be appreciating that.
yeah, he doesn't understand anything that's happening. She's like, oh my god, I love Big Bird. I'm like, wait, who are you?
You're right.
What are you doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You'll turn him around eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, all
right.
right.
So what else? Anything else? No.
Nah,
I think that's it.
I
All
think
right.
we good.
So on that note, you can go to the fanboygarage.com and you can check out our episodes. You can check out our past episodes and of course our merch store where you can still, there you go, Aaron showing off the old school logo.
Old school logo.
On his hoodie. And you can get that and a lot of other things, including the one Star Wars inspired design that is still able to be on our site, the Sith design for now. Check that out. And of course, you can join the conversation on the social medias. Aaron would love to interact with you and
Bring it.
talk about Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers, sourdough bread,
Yeah. My brother got a huge kick out of the sourdough bread. He's like, oh, he texted me. He's like, oh, it's so cute. You gushing over sourdough bread, you jerk.
So anyway, you could do that on the social medias, the Twitter, the Instagram, the Facebooks at the Fanboy Garage. And of course, I have a Twitter handle, kind of, at RealCLMighty.
You guys can find me at Vanana_TFG.
And you can find me at Aaron Speaks. That is A_Ron Speaks. Thank you so much, as always, for listening to episode 121 of the Fanboy Garage. We'll catch you guys next week. Peace.